My name is Lucas. I'm 29 years old and I live just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. I work as a tech support specialist for a logistics company, not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I rent a small apartment near a strip mall, drive a 10-year-old Toyota, and on most days my life is as predictable as black coffee. But not that night. It was pouring, one of those late spring downpours where the sky just opens up and doesn't stop. I was driving home from a long shift, already tired and mentally checked out. The wipers were barely keeping up, and visibility was trash. I was halfway through a side road I sometimes take when I saw her. She wasn't trying to flag me down. She was just walking hood up, soaked arms crossed, head down. Her backpack clung to her back like a wet blanket. For a second, I passed right by her, but then I braked. Something about it didn't sit right. I reversed, rolled down my passenger side window. "Hey, you okay?" She turned, clearly hesitant. I could barely make out her face through the rain. "I'm fine, just trying to get home." "You need a ride? I'm heading west towards Hamilton." She paused, looked down the road, then back at me. "Yeah, actually, I live near Fairfield." She got in carefully, trying not to drip too much onto the seat. The car filled with the smell of rain and a hint of something floral, maybe her shampoo. "I'm Lucas," I said as I put the car into drive. "Mari," she replied. "Thanks, it's a rough night." "No kidding." We drove in silence for the first few minutes. I didn't want to press her with questions. She looked tense, the kind of tired that isn't just about walking in the rain. Eventually I asked, "Where are you coming from?" She hesitated. "I was downtown meeting a friend. It didn't go great." I nodded, not prying. She asked what I did. I told her. She smiled faintly. "You don't seem like a tech guy." "And what do I seem like, Spotty? I don't know someone who'd stop in the middle of a storm to pick up a stranger. Not my usual Tuesday, I promise." She laughed a little. It broke the ice. The rest of the ride was light. She gave me directions to a quiet neighborhood I'd driven through once or twice. Neat yards, small porches, a couple of porch lights cutting through the fog. We pulled up to a small brick house with one dim porch light flickering. I put the car in park. "Well," I said, "here we are." She looked out the window, then back at me. She didn't open the door. Instead, she turned and said quietly, "Come inside. I don't want to be alone tonight." It didn't come out flirtatious. It wasn't some movie moment. Her voice cracked just slightly, and she looked tired. Not dramatic, just human. I froze for a second. I'd never done something like that before, but I could feel that this wasn't about anything more than company. "Okay," I said. She unlocked the door and we walked in. The place was warm, but quiet, lived in, but tidy. There were framed pictures on a shelf, family maybe. A flickering candle on the kitchen table. She poured 2 mugs of tea without asking chamomile. We sat at the kitchen table for hours. We talked about everything and nothing. She told me she used to study graphic design but quit halfway through, that she works part-time at a bookstore, that she sometimes walks just to clear her head. I told her about my dad's coffee obsession, about how I've been meaning to quit my job for 2 years, how I once drove all the way to Nashville just to eat at a diner I saw on YouTube. At one point she said, "You're easy to talk to." I replied, "You're easy to listen to." There was nothing romantic, not that night. Just 2 strangers who didn't feel like strangers for very long. At some point she brought me a blanket from her linen closet and laid it over my shoulders. "I'm glad you stopped," she whispered. "Me too." Before I left at sunrise, we exchanged numbers. No promises, no awkward tension, just a simple mutual knowing. That night mattered. It had been 3 days since that night. I didn't text her, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know if I was supposed to. That night felt fragile, like something you don't disturb. I replayed it in my head a dozen times, the moment she asked me to come inside, the tea, the blanket, the quiet comfort of sitting across from someone who didn't try to impress you. On the 4th morning, as I was microwaving leftover pancakes, my phone buzzed. "Mari. Hey, thanks again for the other night. Hope you got some sleep eventually." I stared at the screen longer than necessary. Then I smiled and typed back, "Me, and I think I slept for 12 hours after." That tea was magic. We chatted back and forth a bit, nothing heavy, Just easy messages about music, weather, how I hated my office's coffee. Then around noon, she asked, "Do you ever go to that used bookstore downtown on 8th? I told her I'd walked past it 100 times but never went inside. You should, she said. I'm there today. Stop by if you want. I changed shirts, grabbed my keys, and went. It was a quiet little shop with creaky floors and way too many books stacked in every corner. She was behind the counter, hair tied back, wearing a gray cardigan with the sleeves pushed up. She looked surprised, but glad. You came, she said. You said bookstore. I can't say no to the smell of old paper. She grinned. You're a man of taste. She had about an hour left in her shift, so I browsed while she worked. We kept talking in little pieces. When she wasn't ringing people up, she'd ask me what I thought about certain authors or tell me stories about weird customers. I ended up buying a beat-up copy of The Little Prince. When she finished work, we walked to a nearby coffee shop. We sat near the window, and it started raining again, just lightly this time. She sipped a hot chocolate. I got something with too much cinnamon in it. We didn't talk about the night I drove her home, not directly, but it hovered there like a third person at the table. Eventually I asked, was that normal for you, inviting someone in like that? She stared out the window for a second. No, she said, it really wasn't. I don't know why I did it. I just didn't want to feel invisible that night. I nodded. I get it, I said. Sometimes I wonder if anyone would notice if I just stopped showing up to work. She gave me a sad little smile. They'd notice. You're weird enough. We talked for a long time. She told me more about her life, how she moved to the area 2 years ago after her mom passed away, how she thought she'd start fresh, but ended up feeling stuck instead. She mentioned a guy she'd been kind of seeing, not a boyfriend, and I didn't ask. She said they hadn't spoken since last week, that he disappeared, then came back, then disappeared again. She said she was done. I don't think I loved him, she said quietly. I think I was just afraid of being the only one who cared. That sentence stayed with me. We left the coffee shop around sunset. She offered me a ride this time. Her car had been in the shop but was finally fixed. It was strange sitting on the passenger side. She drove slow like someone who didn't want the day to end. When she dropped me off, she didn't say much, just parked and looked straight ahead. I'm glad we did this, she said. I didn't think I'd want to see you again, but I'm glad. I looked at her, unsure what to say. You don't owe me anything, Mari, I said. I'm not trying to rush you into anything. I know, she replied. That's why I'm not scared of you. I nodded. Text me sometime. She smiled. I will. And I got out. Back in my apartment, everything felt quieter than usual, not lonely, just still. I thought about her more than I expected to, not in a romantic way. Not yet, just present, like a song stuck in your head that you don't mind hearing again. Over the next week, we texted more short messages, jokes, updates, nothing heavy, nothing complicated, but sometimes simplicity is louder than anything else. The following Saturday, I woke up to a message from her. Feel like walking a bit. I need air and a break from screens. It was barely 9:00 a.m. I hadn't even made coffee yet, but something about the timing made me reply fast. Yeah, tell me where to meet you. We ended up walking through a park near her place, not anything fancy, just a couple of gravel trails, a small pun benches that always leaned a bit, and the occasional mom jogging behind a stroller. She wore a navy hoodie, no makeup, hair up, looked more like herself than ever. We walked for almost an hour, talked about dumb stuff, bad movies, how people fake phone calls to avoid conversations, whether grilled cheese with ketchup is disgusting or genius. She seemed relaxed, comfortable. Then we sat on a bench near the pond. That's when it shifted. She got quiet, looked out at the water. Then she said, he called last night. I didn't need to ask who. I didn't. She nodded. Said he misses me. Said he's been thinking a lot, that he wants to talk. I didn't say anything right away. She kept going. It's always like this. He disappears, comes back, says the right thing just when I'm starting to forget. Did you say yet? I told him I didn't know, that I needed time. I looked at her. Do you want him back? She stared at the water. I don't think so, but it's complicated. I nodded slowly. It doesn't have to be. That made her turn. You think I'm being dramatic? No, I think you're being honest. But I also think sometimes we cling to people just because they've been around. She breathed out through her nose, half smiling. You're good at this. You always say things like you're quoting some forgotten book. I probably am. She laughed a little, but then went quiet again. I don't want to mess this up, she said finally. Whatever this is with you, I like it, but I haven't exactly ended things with him cleanly, and I don't want to bring that into your world. I nodded. I appreciate that, but you don't need to protect me from your mess. How about my own? She looked at me more serious now. I'm not ready for something serious, not yet. That's fine, I said. I'm not asking you to be ready, I'm just here. It was a long silence. We just sat there, not touching, not speaking, but not needing to leave either. Eventually, we walked back toward the parking lot. Right before we parted ways, she said, Can I ask you something kind of selfish? Sure. If I asked you to come over tonight just to watch a movie or something, would that be okay? Of course. She exhaled like she'd been holding that in for a while. Okay, then I'll text you later. I went home and spent the day doing nothing but checking my phone. She didn't message until after 7:10 p.m. Now's good if you're still okay with it. Her house felt familiar by now. The porch light still flickered. The inside smelled like cinnamons this time, maybe a candle. We watched a movie. Neither of us paid much attention. She sat cross-legged on the couch, sipping tea. I stayed on the other side, arms crossed, not pushing anything. When the movie ended, she didn't turn on the lights. Would it be weird if I said I'm scared? I turned to her. Of what? Of being alone, of starting something new, of losing myself again. I sat for a moment. It's not weird. She turned toward me. You're the first person in a long time who listens without trying to fix me. I don't think you're broken. That made her look away for a second. Then softly she said, Neither do I anymore. I didn't stay the night. She didn't ask. I think we both knew it was too soon. But before I left, she walked me to the door. She looked up at me and said, This, whatever this is, it feels different. It is. Then she hugged me tight, still warm, not longing, not romantic, just real. The next day, she sent me a photo of a poem she underlined in a book from the store. The last line read, Some people arrive just in time to prove you weren't crazy for hoping. I stared at that line a long time because I knew exactly what she meant. It had been 2 weeks since we watched that movie together. We still texted every couple of days sometimes, just a meme, a photo of a book she found, or a quick, hope today's decent. Nothing intense, nothing labeled. I didn't push, she didn't disappear. It was somewhere in the middle, and strangely, I was okay with that. Then one Wednesday night, I was walking out of the grocery store when I saw her. She was standing near the parking lot next to a bike rack umbrella, closed at her side, staring at her phone. She didn't see me at first. She looked tense, like someone trying to make a decision and failing. Mari, I called out. She turned quickly, caught off guard. When she saw me, her face softened. Lucas, hey, what are you doing here? Same thing you are doing, I guess, buying overpriced cereal and pretending I eat vegetables. She laughed quietly, but it didn't stick. You okay? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, just a weird day. She didn't explain, and I didn't ask. Instead, I said, Want to ride home? She hesitated again, then nodded once. Yeah, that'd be nice. The ride was quiet at first. Then halfway down the road, she spoke. He came to my job today. I didn't ask who. She nodded. Said he just wanted to talk. But he still doesn't understand why I won't give him a second chance. I didn't speak, kept my hands on the wheel, eyes forward. He kept saying things like, we were good together, and you're making this harder than it has to be. And for a second, I almost gave in, not because I wanted to, just because I was tired. I get that, I said. She looked at me. Do you? I nodded. Yeah, sometimes the idea of what you know is easier than the risk of starting something new, even if what you know isn't enough. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then I told him it was over for real. My grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly, but I didn't say anything yet. I said I couldn't keep doing the almost relationship thing, that it wasn't fair to either of us, that I met someone who makes me feel more like myself than he ever did. And no, I didn't say your name. I needed him to hear it wasn't because he was a bad person, just the wrong one. I glanced at her. She was looking out the window. That's brave, I said. And honest? She smiled slightly. It didn't feel brave. I was shaking the whole time. We pulled into her driveway. The porch light was on. The rain had started again, just a soft drizzle now. Neither of us moved to get out. She turned toward me in the passenger seat. You know what's funny? What? I was so sure I wasn't ready for anything serious. I told myself I needed space, but I think I confused not being ready with not trusting anyone. I looked at her quietly. And now? I asked. She bit her lip, hesitated, then said, now I feel like I'm standing in the middle of everything. Like if I take one step forward, everything changes. And if I stay still, I might lose it anyway. I let out a breath. That's the thing with timing. It never feels perfect. It only feels honest. She looked at me, studying my face for a moment. I think I'm ready to take that step, but only if you're okay going slow. I smiled. I wouldn't know how to go fast, even if I tried. She laughed for the first time that night. It was small but real. I have leftover lasagna, she said suddenly. Made way too much. Want to come in? I smiled again. Only if it's not that frozen kind that tastes like wet cardboard. It's homemade, kind of. We went inside. Her place looked warmer this time, like someone had reclaimed it. New flowers on the windowsill, a blanket thrown over the couch, music playing softly from her phone on the counter. Something acoustic, wordless. We sat at the table eating slowly, not saying much. After dinner, she brought out tea again. I smiled at the familiar ritual. You like routines, huh? I asked. She shrugged. Only the ones that feel safe. She sat across from me, her hands wrapped around the mug. I don't want this to be a rebound, she said. Not for me, not for you. It's not. And I don't want to pretend like everything's suddenly perfect. It's not, I said again, but that's okay. There was a pause, then she said softly, I missed you. Even when I told myself I shouldn't. I missed you too. She reached out and placed her hand over mine. We stayed like that for a while, just sitting, just existing in a shared space that felt right. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. No hug this time, no lingering, just eye contact. I'll see you soon, she asked. Yeah, I said. You will. As I drove home through the drizzle, I realized something. There was no drama, no fireworks, no big declarations, just two people finding their way through the quiet middle of everything and finally choosing the same direction. It had been just over a month since that quiet night with lasagna and chamomile tea, a month of late-night calls, lazy walks, slow conversations, and quiet honesty. There were no labels between us, but we both knew what it was, not undefined, just unforced. I saw her too sometimes, 3 times a week, sometimes at her place, sometimes grabbing sandwiches at a quiet diner. Neither of us used to like, but suddenly did. She still lit that same flickering porch light every night, and somehow it stopped looking broken. It looked familiar. One Thursday evening, I was at her place fixing a loose kitchen cabinet. I wasn't great with tools, but she'd asked, and I was stubborn. She sat nearby, sipping wine from a mug with chipped paint legs curled beneath her on the counter stool. You know, she said casually, he texted again. I looked up but didn't flinch. We hadn't talked about him in 2 weeks. I didn't answer, she added. I deleted it. No hesitation this time. I nodded quietly. That's good. She tilted her head. You didn't ask what he said. I don't need to know, I replied. I trust you. She smiled, soft, honest. I don't think I've ever had that before. I finished the cabinet, closed the door to test it. It clicked gently into place. I said, wiping my hand, you do have questionable taste in hardware. She rolled her eyes, and yet I keep feeding you. We laughed. It wasn't a big moment, but it was ours. That weekend we went to a local art fair. She pointed at a painting of a messy field of sunflowers and said, that's what my brain looks like on Mondays. I bought her a tiny ceramic fox from one of the booths because she once told me foxes always look like they know something. She named it Clyde. On Sunday, we walked the long trail behind the park where we first sat in silence together. The pond was calmer now, the